Hollywood loves a good fairy tale, but it loves a fall from grace even more. And no recent tale has unraveled more awkwardly than that of Rachel Zegler, the self-proclaimed Gen Z it girl, whose overnight fame turned into an embarrassing spectacle of ego, entitlement, and nonstop backlash. What was once seen as a Cinderella story is now viewed as yet another cautionary tale about what happens when woke Hollywood crowns a queen before she's earned the throne. Funny how fast America's sweetheart becomes America's eye roll when the mask slips. When Rachel Zegler was handed the lead role in Spielberg's remake of West Side Story, it was painted as a dream come true. One day, she's a theater kid filming covers in her bedroom, and the next she's on a multi-million-dollar film set. Not because of years of grinding, but because a viral video put her on Spielberg's radar. The industry fell over itself to anoint her the next big thing. Proof that talent could still be discovered in the age of TikTok and hashtags. Nothing says meritocracy like being catapulted to stardom because you posted a cover song at the right time during peak diversity hiring season. Critics fawned over her singing and screen presence like she was some kind of acting prodigy sent from the heavens. Every late-night interview showcased her wide-eyed wonder, as if she were too humble to process her own success. But let's be real, she knew exactly what game she was playing. The faux humility, the "I can't believe this is happening" shtick, it was PR gold, carefully crafted to appeal to both Hollywood elites and Gen Z Twitter warriors. She's basically Anne Hathaway 2.0, if Anne Hathaway had a TikTok and a superiority complex. Ziegler's narrative was all about how she was personally chosen by Spielberg, as though being picked by a famous director automatically made her worthy of global attention. She promised to respect the original West Side Story while modernizing it, which usually just means injecting social commentary where it doesn't belong and calling it art. And of course, the press played along, labeling her the future of Hollywood after a single role. Spielberg must have seen something in her the rest of us missed, like a free pass to check every diversity box on a casting sheet. On the surface, everything looked perfect. She had the spotlight, the critical acclaim, and a fan base that worshipped her every move. Social media couldn't get enough of her performative gratitude and preachy activism. But, as usual, woke culture elevated someone too fast and without question, because questioning her would have been problematic, right? When you build a pedestal that high, the fall is always messy, especially when it's built on hashtags and hype instead of real talent. Even in her early days, there were whispers. Zegler was a bit too opinionated for someone who hadn't earned her stripes. Reports of disagreements with choreographers and production staff were quietly brushed aside by fans who were too enamored to care. But behind the scenes, insiders say she was difficult, constantly inserting herself into creative decisions and pushing back against direction. It's always the least experienced ones who think they know everything. Woke confidence is a hell of a drug. Instead of taking her cues from industry veterans, she was allegedly more concerned with how scenes would play on Twitter or whether her lines were empowering enough. Crew members have hinted that her need to control her image often slowed down production and created unnecessary tension on set. For someone who hadn't even paid her dues, she acted like she was above the entire process. While the public saw an innocent newcomer riding a dream, the reality was far murkier. Zegler wasn't just ambitious, she was calculated. Her behind-the-scenes behavior reportedly included passive-aggressive power plays, micro-dramas over creative input, and a general unwillingness to take direction unless it aligned with her vision. In other words, she acted like a star long before she earned it. Nothing screams Hollywood nightmare like a first-timer acting like a producer just because they trended on Twitter once. And yet, Hollywood protected her. Any criticism was either ignored or chalked up to misogyny or racism, the default shields of woke stardom. It didn't matter if legitimate professionals found her difficult. If you called her out, you were the villain. The industry was too busy congratulating itself for being progressive to admit it might have backed the wrong horse. Hollywood doesn't learn. It just doubles down on its mistakes and blames the backlash on haters. Critics fawned over her singing and screen presence like she was some kind of acting prodigy sent from the heavens. Every late-night interview showcased her wide-eyed wonder, as if she were too humble to process her own success. But let's be real, she knew exactly what game she was playing. The faux humility, the "I can't believe this is happening" shtick. It was PR gold, carefully crafted to appeal to both old-school film lovers and the Twitter crowd. She played the part of Hollywood's fresh-faced darling flawlessly. Funny how quickly relatable theater kid turns into smug activist in couture. Spielberg himself hyped her up like she was the second coming of Natalie Wood. He gushed about her new energy and modern take on Maria. But let's call it what it was. A desperate attempt to inject Gen Z relevance into a remake nobody asked for. The production leaned hard into progressive optics, and Zegler became the poster child for a film more concerned with virtue signaling than authentic storytelling. Of course, Spielberg picked her. He probably thought casting a loud, woke teenager would buy him another few years of cultural immunity. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Zegler's social media following ballooned. Journalists praised her as a voice for the new generation. She teased fans with talk of reimagining West Side Story, promising to honor the original while giving it a fresh update. Translation: gut the soul of a classic and inject a heaping dose of identity politics. Nothing screams fresh perspective like lecturing audiences about colonialism during a musical. But behind the scenes, the mood wasn't quite so sunny. Whispers began emerging, subtle at first, about her behavior on set. Multiple sources claimed Zegler was unusually combative for a newcomer, often challenging choreography choices and offering unsolicited input on the script. At first, these incidents were brushed off as creative passion, but as the frequency grew, so did the eye rolls. It's amazing how fast strong female lead turns into unbearable diva when no one's around to retweet her. Veteran crew members allegedly found working with her to be exhausting, citing an endless stream of opinions and an inability to take direction without pushing back. For someone with no prior film experience, Zegler reportedly acted like she knew better than the professionals around her. It was no longer just confidence. It was entitlement disguised as empowerment. The only thing more overbearing than her performance was her ego. As the press tour ramped up, so did the friction. Publicists scrambled to keep her on message, but Zegler couldn't help herself. She started making strange, preachy comments during interviews, complaining about the state of the industry, complaining about critics, even taking passive-aggressive jabs at the original West Side Story for being problematic. Yes, the same film she owed her entire career to.